Okay, back again. Lots of mess. I've just stopped for a cup of tea and just thought I'd show what's going on here. I'll go around the other side first. I don't like working in cramped spaces, but I've got to do it because I have to do something. So I'll get down to the floor here. So that's the sill plate. And it's just got a couple of tacks in it. It's not welded along the bottom, but it's just there so that the doors and everything else have a bit of rigidity now. And you know, it does meet up where it's supposed to. If you look up the other end, that vertical new steel is like an internal structure, and then the skin past that fits onto it. I'm looking now and I've realised that this door that I did the bottom on has sucked down a bit, but I'll just knock that out when it's done. When I get back to it, it happened on both. It's all good. This one's perfect though. It's not hinged in or anything, so it's flopping in the breeze at the base. But you can see how far out it is. Once that gets pushed in and meets up with this, then that'll be just right. There you go. So plenty of room for movement there. So yeah, it actually halfway decently straight now, which is amazing. It's almost taking shape, so I'm quite chuffed. The doors, once I put that in at its level, I mean, it looks pretty good, and it's super strong, eh? It's like over the top, but anyway, that's okay by me. More strength I can put in it, the better, I reckon. Once they got sorted out, then the roof straightened up, and this gap here leveled back off. So that's sort of why I did that in the first place. I jumped over to that because I was worried about things not hitting their right heights. So I know it's like, it looks like I'm sort of jumping around, but I am, but I'm doing it for a reason, because I've sort of got to look at a problem as it arises due to something being moved. You know, if I move one door, something over the other side might move, so I've got to always be conscious of it. I'm working out with this car to make sure that I don't go too far forward, because if I weld something that I've just put in without checking everything else, it's set in stone, and then you know, it's a lot harder to cut and grind something than it is to just move it around with a pair of pliers. Like, I've got those welding pliers, they're just great, those things. I've got heaps of them. I need more. I mean, I've got about 10 or 12 of them, but I reckon I could do with another 20. Next project I get, I'm going to invest in a heap more. I bought these ones as a job lot. The local markets that go around to the farmers markets, some bloke was selling stuff that he bought at an auction, and I picked them up for about 10 bucks, the whole bag of them, so that was a bargain. These are $30 Australian. These are made in the US, so they're good. They're a little rusty, but I don't really care about that. I've got some that I've made a little different and stuff like that. But anyway, so I moved forward. Come on, camera. They don't like the dust. So I moved forward, and I did this side as well. So this is just panel steel on this side, and I wheeled out 3 separate pieces. 1, 2, 3, just because I'm working out with that English wheel that I've got. It's very little, and you know, I can't really do big panels because I don't want to get help. So it's easier just to do it in a little panel and there's less errors. So I've just, and what I've done, just to explain what's going on better, down in here, what I did yesterday is I welded in a thick plate where the frame is. I've welded a plate right to where the panel is going to touch. So if you imagine the contour of the panel on the outside, I've measured out exactly where it's supposed to be and then put that plate in. So now the plate is like a buttress against it. And I'm guessing that that's sort of how the floor was anyway, sort of something like that. And the new parts, the new pieces that I've made actually butt up against that. So now I'll be able to get in and weld and then rust treat this and grind it all back and just coat it liberally with bitumen, my favourite product. So that's sort of the most strength that I can get out of what I've got. It needs to be knocked in a little bit there, and there's a bit more work in that corner to go yet, but over here you can see how perfect it is. It's sitting right up against it, so that's easily weldable. So I can weld the floor frame onto that thick steel panel, and then the thick steel panel to the bottom of the sill on the outside from the inside. And then what I'll do is, this is just you know, roughly tacked in right now. I'm trying to keep as much of this panel as I can. So this one was a bit better. I actually had it all the way down here, but I looked at it and thought, you know what, it's too busy for me. I'm just going to make a straight flat line, and I just threw some dirty tacks in. I didn't even bother cleaning the metal to begin with. I'm just trying to get the structure back in it. Then it's easier to work out what's going on. It's amazing how much stronger. This is obviously perfect. You can hear that. This has been fully wheeled out. It's got a lot of shape to it now, so it's a very strong panel for what it is. It's 0.95 mil. I'm not sure exactly what this was, but it's very similar. But you can hear the strength in that now. Very similar. Still, there's not a lot of movement there. Towards the back end, that's where it starts to move again, because it's not done here, and you've got a big gaping hole here, so that creates a bit of movement. So up in here, I'm gonna. This is where one of the rib. This is where one of the rib on the inside goes down, and it's obviously rusted right through on the inside of that. So I've left that for now because I think that I'll have a second chapter going on with this one sooner rather than later. You can see the vertical line here as well, where another rib is on the inside. So not sure what I'm going to do there. I think what I'll do is I always say I'm not sure, but I think what I'll do is I'll get one of those big pump-up garden sprayers. Big pump-up garden sprayer with a long wand, and I'll extend the wand or just make it a big flexi line and put the sprinkler head on, and then fill it up with some rust converter, and then feed it in through wherever I can go up to the end, pump it up, and then turn it on and then draw it back, and that way I'll know I'll get the whole surface on the inside with rust converter. And then I'll do that probably with all of them rather than taking them off, because then you have to take the skin off, then you have to deal with this up here. There's a lot yeah, there's a lot, but I think that's an easy solution to get inside of things. And then obviously you come back with your bitumen paint or whatever paint you're going to use. You guys seem to love the Rust-Oleum over in the US. It's not a big product over here. People use it, but I don't hear about it a lot. So what I'm going to do now is to get a bit more strength in this section here. I've got another one of these, so that's the panel that I did. So what I've got, this is the worst one of the three. It's got a bit of a curl down that way. So I wheeled it out first. It's got a few track marks in it, but I'm not too concerned. Then I use my bead roller and tip this edge. And then when you do that, you need to shrink this edge as well because it'll want to curl. And then I put a step up here, and it's not even perfect either, so it's not meant to be. And what that'll do is it provides a backing for the thin steel that I'm welding to. So when the thin steel sits right up to that, there's a gap there of the thin steel, and then it'll be sort of relatively flush. And if I get a bit of, if you imagine the steel is here, if it starts to come back on me, melt away, I've got more of this one to tack onto. So, and then once they're together on the inside, that'll be welded again, just a few more times. But what I'm doing here is I'm trying to work out, I've only really got a few little pieces to work with. So this is the corner of the wheel arch. As luck would have it, on this side I have that little piece of rusty steel left. So that's all I need, because that level is going to be that level. So I've got that line, and I've got that line, and I hammer and dollied most of this out just before, just to get it relatively flat. And then I'm just going to put this up to it, sit roughly where it goes, make sure it's right, giving myself a bit of a gap, and then scribe on the outside of that, which I've done. And you probably can't see it because I use that for a scribe. It's a piece of stainless steel wire, and I just give it a sharpen every 10 or 20 goes, and it creates a very small line, very thin line. And it's just enough to see, and it cost me nothing. And yeah, it didn't cost me $25. So I've got the line, and then I'm giving myself another 15 mils extra, and as I'll cut it off here and then put it back up, you know the deal. You got to just keep going and going and going and going and going until you get it right, and then tip that edge with the bead roller, and then obviously this edge will have to be shrunk to put the curve back into this, because once you tip that, it'll straighten it back up again, because this will stretch and it'll actually draw this right out, so it'll be this way most likely. Plus you've got these two funny edges here, so a little bit involved. It's not that difficult, but you sort of got to get it right, because it's quite a important part of the vehicle leading up to this part here. This not so much, because the eye gets drawn from the front wheels through to here, so in the center down the bottom is not that big a deal because it's a large space. I definitely think what I'm going to do is I can't work this car out. I'm pretty sure it's got two-tone blue. I think it was painted with two colors of blue. But anyway, this is an original Dove blue here. And what I'm going to do is try and get that color matched. Then I've got another blue here. And I quite like that one, it's quite a nice colour. But anyway, what I'll do is I'll get this colour matched, and then paint. Sorry, I thought about this for a couple of hours last night, so I've worked out what I'm going to do. So the idea is to make this look authentic. You can't just paint. I've seen a few people do this. They do it and it just doesn't look quite right. So the idea is to get this to match that, but following in the footsteps of a couple of other people, Musty One did it. He got like 000 steel wool and scoured some of this stuff back, and that brought out some of the definition, and I like that. So some of these flaky areas are going to have to go, and I don't particularly like the fact that the paint's very faded there. And I've also got rust spots as well, so scuffing that back and putting clear or linseed oil or something over it in the end will be the end game. But here, what I'm going to do is weld this up, then get some fine wet and dry, and sand this back probably about this far until I hit that blue paint, or paint stripper, doesn't matter. So once I hit that blue paint all the way along, and I'll have to come up further here, and I won't make it a straight line, it'll definitely be organic, so it'll come up here and across there and wherever it ends up. But bring it back to the blue here on this section, and then make it relatively perfect, and then finish this off, and then mask off where the blue ends, etch, paint, prime, or etch, seal, prime, and then get the colour matched paint it heavily along the bottom, and then fade it into the old Dove blue, which is that paint there. So then I've essentially got a blue panel leading up to something with patina and rust and wall wounds. And then what I can do is come back and so where it's masked off will be a hard blue line. It'll be a hard blue line, and then what I'll do is I'll get the steel wool, a mixture of steel wool, paint stripper and sanding discs and other things, and then just make the line very organic and maybe bring it right up here and, you know, across here and, you know, maybe all the way up here, depending on what's happening here. But that'll take care of everything, and it'll look like the paint's perfect down the bottom, and then it comes up to some dodgy looking paint, and then I can always come back with some red oxide and shoot the base of it and then fade it up so it just looks like there's a patch of blue that's sort of waving through. That's the idea anyway, because I don't like the idea of having just plain steel like that. Rusty's okay, but I definitely think sorting out the new stuff to make it look like it's still new from the factory is probably a better idea, and then leaving this older stuff with the character. Anyway, I'll bring you back. Just my thoughts. Leave a comment.